What up? Marsh Pod. We're recording this on a Monday morning, later recording time than we normally do. Your boy had some extremely exciting travel last night, so if I look like I woke up 5 minutes ago, it's because I basically did wake up 5 minutes ago. Was up in Vermont last week. We're obviously back in the Casa de Florida, but was up in Vermont for a little pre-holiday family seeing, and the weather that impacted a lot of the East Coast yesterday. Tried to throw a wrench. They tried to, but we got them. I was supposed to fly out of Vermont on late yesterday. This is awesome podcasting, I know, but changed the flight to be out of Albany, New York instead, which is about 2 hours away. Great move because the original flight, both the flight to JFK and then the subsequent flight down to Florida, both got canceled. So would have been stuck in the Northeast much longer than I had originally intended. But we're back. We're going on about 3 hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep, but we're doing it. And that's the recap portion of the pod. Top five, that's what we're focusing on today here on our Monday edition. Top five undefeated teams. So we've got five groups or five squads that are currently sitting unblemished. That's Cascadia. It's the Originators. That's Heartland Zombie Stars. That is Europe and Rocky Mountain. Got our notes over here, so apologize for that. So five teams that have looked really good. I think we got lucky last season that South America started 5-0 and then lost all those games because it was a great reminder and a great precedent setter that early in the season things can go astray. And obviously they did for South America. So that's okay. But we're going to rank these guys 1 through 5. I don't think there's anything wrong with being the fifth best undefeated team at this point in time. We'll probably bring back pointless power rankings at some point in the regular season, but for now, this is what we're getting, a top 5. So, number 5 is Europe. Look, I think they're really good. I really do. I think they're 4-0 now on the season. They've looked exceptionally well. When you try to look at and you try to build a team that you say, we think this group can be competitive for a championship and win a lot of games, what you need is a go-to scorer, and you need a nice secondary guy. That go-to scorer doesn't have to be 20 points per game, by the way. You look at piece of these. Their go-to score was Fareed Redmond. He scored, 13, 14 points per game? That's okay. Those are perfectly fine scoring numbers. He was, though, capable late in the game to take over, and we've seen him continue that with UConn. Early on this season, he's been 20-plus point per game guy. It doesn't have to be league-leading scoring guy. You just need somebody who can take over. Well, they have that in Andrei Ivanov. He's looked really good. He's been efficient. He's lightened up the scoreboard, and he's got a great number 2 in Ty Murka. They've got good depth. They've got the third best defense. One note, of these 5 teams, 4 of them are ranked in the top. They're 1 through 4 in best defenses. Defense wins championships. My only concern at this point for them is their schedule. They haven't looked, and they haven't gone up against a murderer's row of teams. Now, I think that's partially a little international bias. These international teams, particularly last year, did not. APAC had a nice run, but they didn't fare exceptionally well in competition against North American-based basketball clubs in SimWorld Prep. That's just the first disclaimer that, to me, as I look at this team undefeated, I have the concern on. But if they keep it rolling, they've got a good test coming up. If they keep that rolling and they can spread outside of their region, outside of their division, and they keep winning games, Europe is the real deal. Our number 4, I've got Heartland. Bernari James, he's a top 5 scorer in this league. He's an incredible. There's never been a question about his offensive capabilities. The question, and credit to Bernari, though we haven't heard too much of him so far this season, is that he has pared back quite a bit. All the drama, if you said, hey, we're gonna have quite a bit of drama in SimWorld Prep, no surprise, it's people, and Bernari James is not going to be a part of it, you're wrong. I'd tell you you're wrong. But Bernari James has been a completely different character person thus far through the regular season, but he's remaining the elite scorer that he always has been. Do they have secondary guys? That's my big question for these guys. Do they have secondary guys who can do what the rest of these 5 teams have? I don't know yet, but they do have the second best defense in SimWorld Prep. Is that big of a calling card? It's something. We see how great the originators are. Heartland's been really good under Coach Loveless. They have potential. They have the pieces to potentially be really good second pieces. It's just a matter of, do we see that or not? And I think how deep that goes will end up being a big telling point for how good this basketball team is. Number 3, I've got Kevon Jackson. I don't know that Kevon is better than Benari, but I think it's worth a conversation. We're not having it right now, but it's worth an argument. They have better secondary pieces for Cascadia in Jason Holbrook and Tyree Wells. Tyree Wells has been awesome, by the way. Racking up the assists, great rebounding. His score numbers aren't up there, but that's perfectly fine. They don't need to be because Kevon Jackson is at 17. All 3 of those guys are 12 points and above. That's really, really good. Also, love that this team moves the ball as much as they do. They have 6 guys that are averaging 2 or more assists. I know this is a small sample, but it still is something to point out. And they have 8 that are averaging 1.7 assists or more. This is a team that moves the ball efficiently, gets it to their guys, and all of that ball movement gets open looks for their best shooters, and they've taken advantage of that. Number 2, I've got Rocky Mountain. Their depth, and this is just a continuation of what they were last year. This is one of the teams that has the most continuation from last year to this year, and it shows. Dink Pate, Bonde Thunda have been phenomenal pieces. Of course, I've made the argument. I think Justin Bell should be the guy getting the shots. But look, you can't look at this group and say, well, no, you got to take away from Dink Pate. Dink Pate has been phenomenal. Justin Bell has done exactly what we expected he would do coming into the season. His numbers aren't gaudy, but they don't need to be because he's just been an efficient scorer doing exactly what he needs to. This is a team that brings back a lot of great pieces from a year ago, and it shows. Justin Bell, like I said, could be that guy. Bonde Thunda has been phenomenal, as has Dink Pate. I'd expect both of their numbers to go down. They're both shooting 61% from the floor. That's not really numbers you expect to see from a guard, let alone 2 of them. So I wouldn't be shocked if those numbers regress a little bit, but still the fact that they're capable of that in a short burst part of the season says a lot, because as this team gets rolling, they can be a really dangerous team. And I'm pretty sure they're the one team within these 5 undefeateds that are not in the top 10 defensively, obviously not top 5. And then number 1, it's the one team left. It's the Originators. They have the best defense. They probably have the second best defense, and they might have the third best defense. That's how good this team is defensively. Their points against is well away from even the second and third and fourth best teams that are all on this list. They have the best player right now in SimWorld Prep. I can't hear an argument that says Cooper Flagg is not a better basketball, or there's a better basketball player than Cooper Flagg right now. He has been phenomenal. If anything, he's setting himself up for the unquestioned number 1 pick in the SWBA in 2 seasons. They're a little one-dimensional, though. If we're going to nitpick, and we've been nitpicking on a lot of these teams, they're a little one-dimensional. Jay Laster is shooting 34.4%. He's their second leading scorer. What's the sugar and spice and everything nice to make a nice basketball team, a team that can win a championship? You need a star, and you need a secondary guy. They haven't shown a secondary score. Jay Lester has that in his bag. He hasn't been that, like I said, 34.4% from the floor. I'd expect that to improve. I really don't expect to see, by season's end, us talking about Jay Laster being an inefficient scorer. That's just not what he's shown us in last season, and being this hyper inefficient. So I'd expect that to continue. The great thing is that the way they've played, they haven't needed that secondary guy. And I think it's, in a lot of ways, similar to Beasts of the East last year. Their defense was so phenomenal that, yes, Fareed Redmond, like we talked about earlier, was the number 1 guy, averaging 13 points, but they didn't have a second guy that you just say, turn the ball over. Levin Culler scored, but Levin Culler scored in very specific situations that we've seen again this season. Second chance opportunities, pick and roll opportunities, switches. That's where we saw Levin Culler do a lot of his work a year ago. And it worked for Beasts of the East because their defense was so great. Originators are following the same path. All right, last thing before we go, and this is going to be the last time I personally choose to speak about things that are off the court. But there's been a lot of bickering. And I'm tired, man. Not only am I tired because I didn't sleep last night, but I'm tired of this. And I'm not here to be judge, jury, executioner, lay down the law of any of these things. Look, I'm just not. And what I'm going to say is probably not going to make anybody happy, which probably means it might be right, but everybody thinks they're right, so that's just naivete. I've spoken to people that were involved in all of these situations that we've seen particularly escalate over the last 5 days. And there's no winners. Man, each side is coming out saying one thing and painting their side of the story, and that's fine. And if you think the truth is coming out, quote unquote, let this be the truth as much as it is ever going to be told factually, because I have no dog in this fight. But the interactions that we've seen between player and coach have been escalated by both sides unnecessarily. There could have been a player that approached a coach about minutes perfectly reasonably. And I personally believe, in some of what I've been told and believe to be true, the coach might have been able to handle that a little bit more professionally. That's true. So if you take a microcosm of that, you say that's the player's right. But then, as those conversations continue to go, the player doesn't do a great job of not escalating it and not continuing the escalation of it. And in that case, I understand where the coaches can believe they're right. My point. We're all losers for all of this. Not you're a loser, but we're losing by this being this forefront of our conversation. No coach is ever going to side with a player of another team and vice versa. Can we please, for the love of God, just take some time? This is the second time I've said it, and I'm not going to say it again because it's exhausting to have to continually watch these types of asinine conversations take place. Players want to get minutes, man, and if you're a coach and you don't understand that, then why are you coaching? And coaches don't want to be told by a player how to run their organization. And if you're a player and you can't understand that, why are you playing? Both sides need to respect the position that the other is in. I haven't seen a lot of that right now. In fact, I've seen none of it. I've seen players doubling down. I've seen coaches doubling down. Let things play out. Respect the players that you have and strive to earn their respect. And players, respect the coach in their position and strive to earn theirs. It's a two-way street. And right now, it seems as if a lot of people are walking as if it's a one-way street. And the organizations that are not in the news are the ones we talked about. The ones that have respect between player and coach, that promote their player, that promote their coach, are winning basketball games. All of this matters. Your perception will matter. How you are perceived by other coaches within SimWorld Prep, SimWorld U, and scouts and coaches at SWBA matters. And I'm not talking about you-only players. I'm talking about coaches. If you think there's not ADs looking in and watching this and saying, oh, I've heard that Coach X wants to coach at my school. The way you're handling a 16-year-old doesn't give me a lot of confidence that I can bring you in and you're going to do anything positive for my program. And if you think there's not general managers that are subsequently watching that, or at least have members of their team that are, you're ignorant. Everybody sees what's going on, and nobody has painted themselves in the right picture except the ones who stay out of the fray. We're on a couple calls this week. Tune in. Big week. Battle for Seattle. It sounds so good. It doesn't read well. It doesn't write well, right? Because it's B-A-T-T-L-E and then S-E-A. It doesn't look like... Actually, no, it does look like it. I take it back. It just sounds awesome. The Battle for Seattle. Coming up. Cascadia. Raining Trays. I'm excited. We'll talk to you next Monday or on broadcast.